Hi, everyone. Welcome to Curb the Binge, the podcast. I'm your host, Katya, and I'm here with a new friend that I've been really excited about interviewing for a while, and her name is Lopa Mersch. Lopa, welcome. It's so good.
Hi. So good to
Hi.
be here. Thank you, Katya.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to do something a little different. Lopa writes in a really beautiful, accessible, conversational style. And that's how her bio is written. So she's going to read her bio. She's going to read it rather than me reading it. So here she
Awesome.
goes.
Hi, everyone. I I don't know. I always feel weird writing in third person, so I always write in first person about myself. I mean, it's weird. So I'm the mother of a 3-year-old and a 7-month-old and a startup. And somewhat miraculously, I'm not completely insane. I credit a good portion of my sanity and my stable energy to adaptogens, which is a big part of why I co-created Rasa, and we make adaptogenic products to support you through your everyday life. We have coffee alternative and coffee blends. And what keeps me going on the hard days are the reviews from our customers saying that Rasa has genuinely changed their lives. And there's, in a startup world and with 2 little ones, there's a lot of hard days. There's plenty of hard days. And when I'm not peddling adaptogens, you can find me doing tea ceremony and or gushing over my insanely cute boys. They're ridiculously cute.
So you have 2 boys.
I have 2 boys.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I have one of each.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So, wow. Okay. So I just wanted to tell really briefly the little story because I think it's so, just so precious of how I found you and how I found your product. So I
Please.
was, I was walking, we both share a town, which is Boulder, Colorado. And I, was walking in this really precious little juice place called Wonder on our main street here. And I walked in and I saw this bag that was so well designed. I just loved the design. And it said Rasa Herbal Coffee. And, I've gone through all the coffee substitutes that I have seen. Well, that's an exaggeration, but I've gone through a lot. And just they all were, either too sweet or just didn't actually give me anything in terms of energy. I didn't feel like they were healthy. There were, none of them stuck. And so I've kind of was going to give up on them. But then I saw Ross and I said, I want to learn more about this. And so I read the packaging and I was amazed to find that you use herbs from Ayurveda, from Chinese medicine, and Western herbalism. And
Mm.
I worked in an Ayurvedic clinic for 3 years. I'm trained as
Mm.
a health coach. So I know a lot about adaptogens. And I was like, just so, more than pleasantly surprised. I was really like, just so happy in my heart to know that someone was putting adaptogens out there, and had faith in them.
Mm.
Um, to help us right now with the amount of stress in the world. And so I tried it for myself and, there's no caffeine, no sugar. If there was, I wouldn't have been able to drink it.
Mm.
And once I did, I just found that, yeah, like this is actually really working. Um, and so I said, I have to reach out and, at the very least tell you how much I love the product. And then it became clear that I wanted to have a conversation about energy and that whole big field that opens up. So
Mm.
that's what brought me to you.
Awesome.
And I would love to know, yeah, what brought you to energy? How did energy become an area of interest and research for you?
Mm.
Tell us about how you got here.
It's a great question. I appreciate the question because it kind of gets at the core of why I'm doing Rasa. There's a couple of cores, but that's one of them. And you brought up Ayurveda, and Ayurveda has been a big source of passion and interest and study for me as well in my life. And I would say, when I was considering this question, she sends the questions in advance. I don't know if I should say that, but that's
Oh
how
yeah,
these things work. This is just
no
how it
secrets.
but when I was considering what am I going to say to that? It really kind of pushed me to look back into my life and realize that I really started looking at the energy question when I really started picking up meditation in earnest. Um, and that was in my early 20s. And, you know, I was, this is like a whole long story that's pretty tangential, so I won't go into it too much, but I've been involved in two cults, and in both contexts there was also a really authentic component to it, in terms of it being rooted in spiritual practice and non-dual tantra. And there was a lot of focus in both of them around cultivating energy for self-cultivation, for enlightenment. And I was like this, like enlightenment or bust kind of chick.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like the super hardcore person. And so yeah, my interest in energy and cultivating energy and having energy really, really started then, in terms of having an awareness of like there being a finite amount of energy, and that there's ways that I leak it, and there's ways that I nourish it. And sometimes I leak it unconsciously, and it takes time to, you know, and a lot of self-examination to see where I'm leaking my energy. And that starts in the mind, it starts in the body, it starts in our habits, all of that. And just got really interested in having, I always had a ton of energy, so I was lucky. But I think it was also a lot because I started getting into adaptogens then. I was taking really good care of myself. I was meditating like a crap load. And then it really went up like 5 notches when I had a baby. That really pushed the conversation to something completely different, because that was the, you know, first trimester of pregnancy. It was like, where did myself go? Like, where did my energy go? I was like, I couldn't survive if I didn't have a 2-hour nap in the day. It literally felt like that. And you know, that's just first trimester, but then having the baby and not getting good sleep and just being on all the time and all of that, really started to push me into this question again of like, how do I nourish myself? How do I energize myself?
Mm-hmm.
And so I started really, really examining it from that place.
Mm-hmm. So you had, it sounds like you had an understanding from your past that energy, there were, you know, ways of creating energy or generating energy through things like meditation or maybe, you know, other practices, exercises, etc. Um, you know, that were kind of, I would say maybe endogenous rather than exogenous, rather than, you
Yeah,
know, taking something from the outside. So,
exactly.
okay. So, Lopa, do you have a story with coffee? Like, did you, you know, you make a coffee substitute. Do you have a history with coffee? And why did it feel important to create a substitute for it?
Um, Another really fun question. I am the woman who was a barista for several years and literally never drank coffee.
Oh,
Um, so I
wow.
loved working in coffee shops. It was so fun for me. And I was also the one like hacking how to make mate lattes in the espresso machine, like way before mate was cool. Um,
Mhm.
and Yeah, it's always, for me, it's always been something that just, I knew I could take it if I wanted to feel really powerful for a while, but it also came with a lot of costs for my body. You know, it was too much. And the biggest thing, you know, I love the way it tastes. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, it is like, if it didn't have that effect on my body, I would drink it so much. But
Mhm.
it just, it's not worth it. This isn't even me being pious or like, you know, I just really take good care of myself. You know, like
Mhm.
there are plenty of things that I indulge in just because I want to, and like not because, you know, that are like quote unquote unhealthy, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's not that worth it to me.
Mhm.
I I made the shift for a coffee alternative. I was hosting a mom's group after my son was born, and everybody wanted coffee. And me having my you know, history in Ayurveda and that sort of thing, I was like, guys, this isn't going to help. You know, this isn't the right thing. And so, you
Mhm.
know, I'm sitting there being like, wait a second, like we should be able to do a lot better for like nourishment and energy. And, you know, I started incorporating some of the Ayurvedic herbs that I knew and making kind of like a roasted dandelion tea. I looked at all the coffee alternatives out there and I was like, gosh, you know, we can do better. You know, similar to what you were saying at the beginning, it was like, they had dates in them or natural flavors, or they had grains, or it had cacao, and I wanted something that didn't have any caffeine at all. And sometimes I get a little speedy on cacao. That said, we are launching a cacao product.
Uh,
So I'm not too purist in that way. But for me personally, it was just not the right fit, or they had, added sugars, whatever. I was like, we can do better. And so I got together with an herbalist friend of mine, and she brought the adaptogens into the mix, and I was like, oh, duh. Like, what do people need more than anything right now in this culture?
yeah.
So I did try to get myself addicted to coffee. Not long after starting the company, I was like, I should be able to get myself addicted and get myself off if I'm going to prove that this really works. And for like the first 7 days, it was going pretty well. And I was like, I had a little journal and I was writing down how it was going. And I was like, it literally, like, I felt like I was on cocaine or something. It was like so powerful. I was like, I could take over the world.
Yes.
And and then after day 7, I was going to go for 30 days and then try and wean myself off. And I was like, the cost on my personal body, my personal physiology being very vata, and my sleep was already interrupted. I feel very acidic inside. It's like this weird kind of crunchy internal feeling, irritable, anxious, like all of it. So I get this like hit of power, and then it would also come with all these other things. And I was like, all right. And, I get enough proof in the pudding from other people saying that they were able to quit or recalibrate their relationship with coffee with the help of Rasa. So I know it works. And I don't have to sacrifice myself as the guinea pig to prove it.
That's such a fascinating story. I love that you tried to get yourself addicted. That's real, that's commitment.
Yeah.
And, that's putting skin in the game. And so, I want to talk about 2 things that were not on the list of questions, but I want to bring in these 2 quick things. Just for our folks that are listening, you mentioned being a vata type, but so we're talking about body types. You and I both have some study of Ayurveda and understanding of that. And just, I wanted to very briefly give a little context, that in Ayurveda, there are 3 body types, but it's not the only system. There's another system that I like to cite, which is Dr. Abravanel's body type system. Not a lot of people know him. He wrote his book in like the 80s. It's called The Body Type Diet and Lifetime Nutrition Plan, for anyone who's interested. But he talks about body types that really line up with Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, which are the Ayurvedic body types. And the one that lines up with Vata is the thyroid type, which I think both you and I share. And I'm the same way. If I drink coffee or I eat sugar, if I drink coffee, I'm a mad person. I think I am going to take over the world, and then my emotions go haywire, and I'm not reliable to be around. So that's, and if I eat sugar, that's also not sustainable, that creates, like you said, it's too expensive. It's too high of a cost. So according to some schools of thought, it's a body type thing. And some people can handle caffeine,
totally.
And others of us just have to pay too high of a price. So I wanted to give a little context to that. And, maybe for everyone, everyone might find in a way that the price is too high for them, but I just wanted to bring the body type piece into the conversation. And then also, would you give us, the best definition that you want to give us of adaptogens?
Yeah, happy to. So adaptogens are a class of super herbs, is one way you can look at them, that are known to help the body adapt to stress. So they exert a normalizing force on the body. They help you to maintain homeostasis, especially under stress. And one way to look at the way that they do this is they act as a little bit of like a stress vaccine. So they do activate your body's stress response. And it's almost like it's in a little bit more of a conscious way. So you actually get a tiny stress response when you take adaptogens. But what that does is it makes your body more facile and better and more capable of handling larger stress responses. So it's tonifying your body. It's tonifying your stress organs, your adrenal cortex, your adrenals, your why I'm completely forgetting the word that I always say, but your sympathoadrenal nervous system and your hypothalamic pituitary axis, which are the two main axes through which your body communicates to your adrenals that you're under stress. And so it basically is like massaging, tonifying, strengthening those, exercising those two pathways in your body so that you're just generally more, just like if you're lifting weights, you're able to like pick up those groceries a little more easily and go up those stairs a little more easily, whatever. And it's doing that for your body's stress response system so that you're able to handle larger loads of stress more easily. Amazing herbs. And I always like to let people know and remind people that adaptogen is actually a scientific term and it's not a marketing term. And it is being used quite a bit as a marketing term these days. So there are quite a few companies that I come across, and this is one of the things that like always gets me irritated in the industry, but I try and hold compassion as well, where they're like adaptogenic maca, adaptogenic goji berry, adaptogenic turmeric, and I notice a correlation that these things tend to have higher price points on them. And I feel like they're putting adaptogen on the price and then charging you more and just sort of taking advantage of consumers. However, they themselves might also just be uneducated and not aware that this is happening. So they're enthusiastic. I mean, I can empathize because when I first started Rasa, I was like, I love all these herbs. All the 12 herbs are so amazing. And my friend made the formula. So, I've been spending 2 years just falling in love with it. They must all be adaptogens, right? And then, started doing my research and was like, oh no, there's actually not that many adaptogens, and like there's different ways of looking at it from a scientific perspective and that sort of thing. And not to say that science is the end all be all way to perceive things and to, assign value to things, but there is this very specific action on the HPA, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, and the sympathoadrenal system, SAS. And that is what categorizes the adaptogens. So, herbs are amazing. Plants are amazing. They're incredible allies. We should celebrate them always, but also be aware of what it's going to do and what it's not. Chaga, amazing for immunity, but it's not going to be doing that sort of internal nervous system and endocrine system massaging to help build your stress resilience. And that doesn't mean it's a rose by any other name would still smell as sweet. Chaga is an amazing mushroom, but it's on the list of things that are often marketed as adaptogens and just doesn't have that property.
That's a really, really amazing point. And I love that you are, as an entrepreneur, going out there and making that distinction of a scientific term versus a marketing term, because this trend of using marketing terms really loosely and kind of just throwing them around, I mean, it's sort of disempowering, in that if we really want to be educated consumers, then, I just love what you're creating, which seems to me like a partnership between the entrepreneur and the consumer to educate ourselves,
Yeah.
And so, you're saying that some of the herbs in Rasa are adaptogenic, but not all of them, right?
Yeah.
Chaga is a mushroom that, or a fungi mushroom that's not adaptogenic, but it's great for immunity. And it is an ingredient in Rasa, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
We have 5 non-adaptogenic herbs and 7 adaptogenic herbs, 12 total herbs in the blend.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you for defining that for us. So, okay. Very, very quick. I think I will throw this in real quick. I've heard folks say, and I've experienced this for myself, I just want to know what you have to say. Just first thought, best thought. I've heard folks say that adaptogens will give you energy during the day and help you to sleep and relax at night. What do you think about that?
I have found that to be true in my own experience. And it's not a one size fits all. Some people are more sensitive than others. And, there are a few energizing. 2 of the herbs in Rasa are more focused on giving energy. And if you're very sensitive, they might keep you up. And when I first started drinking Rasa, I wouldn't tend to have it after like 6 p.m. because it would it would keep me up a bit.
Mhm.
But now I find it actually is very nice and relaxing. And, it is interesting because adaptogens do affect different people differently. And we do get some people who are like, this is my evening drink. This is what I drink at night. And, I just got a message from somebody a week ago that was like, the ginseng's too strong in there. I'm like, it's not technically ginseng, but I'm not going to get into that too much with you right now. But I'm sorry, it's too much for you.
Mhm.
So, everybody's going to be a little bit different. But I would say, if you were to draw a line of best fit, then that would be true. In the same way, coffee works for some people and it doesn't work for other people, but
Mhm.
it's a very
Mhm.
widely consumed thing.
Yep. Yep.
Every plant is going to have a slightly different effect on our physiology.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. And what are those two herbs?
Eleuthero and rhodiola.
Thank you.
And eleuthero is often commonly called Siberian ginseng, which is a bit of a misnomer. It's not in the ginseng family at all, but it is
Yes.
sort of a cousin.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. So what is your mission? You talked about it a little bit at the beginning, the energy and that piece. Are there any other pieces? What's your mission with Rasa?
My mission is to create products that support people in handling this thing we call modern life.
Mm-hmm.
Modern life is crazy. It is. We are constantly exposed to just sort of an unprecedented amount of stress,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to create products, starting with our coffee and coffee alternative blends that help people to adapt to modern life and feel nourished and energized.
I love that. That's so in line with what we do here at Curb the Binge and our Natural High Friday newsletter,
Nice.
because yeah, it is. It's crazy. And how do we do it all and stay sane and stay conscious, present, and, and healthy,
Yeah. Yeah.
without burning ourselves out?
Yeah. And then if I could just add two more pieces
Yeah.
to that. One, I
Yeah.
want to make that as sustainable and environmentally helpful as possible. And so we're doing a lot of work on our supply chain sustainability, and we're really, really stringent about that.
Mm.
And then the other thing that I really want to do, and we haven't yet found the right angle to bring this into how we operate, but I'm really asking the question, living the question. If anybody has ideas about this listening, I would be so grateful for your suggestions. You can shoot me an email at yourservice@rasacoffee.com. But I really want to make this accessible to not just the super elite. I am an affluent, privileged, cisgendered white woman. And I mean, the amount of privilege that I have in my life is exceptional. And I want to spend some of that privilege and, make this product accessible to people who need it more than I do. And that's one of the things that, the wellness being for the, wealthy white elite is really kind of a thing. And that's been really just getting to me. And so, it's a little bit tricky because we're not a profitable company yet. With a consumer product, it takes a lot of time and revenue to usually in the millions before you're profitable, which is
Wow.
kind of amazing. Yeah. So, we've got a long way to go,
Mm.
but, and so considering charity when we're already bleeding money right now is a little bit challenging. But it's still something that's very much in my mind, and wanting to find some way of making adaptogens and the Rasa products as accessible as possible. All right.
Oh. Thank you for that. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for your tears.
Mm. It's just so that's what we need, it's what we need to be doing for each other right now, all of us in this world. And it's just so beautiful, to see so much consciousness.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say is the role of, excuse me, what would you say, when I was reading your website, and I was just kind of getting into Rasa, I came across one of your blogs, and it was so beautiful. It was just, your first person writing, and you were writing about the autumn equinox, and how, you were doing some ritual around bringing in the autumn, and you were thinking about what you were letting go of and what you were bringing in. And I just thought, this is so beautiful, because here is a website, and it's, yes, there's a product on sale, and like, I just got this great piece of education by reading this blog. And it's not only education, the scientific kind, it's also real spiritual education about how I can approach with consciousness the different transitions of the seasons. And so I just fell in love with how, Lopa, you bring, like, Rasa is a whole perspective. It's not just a product, that's how it felt to me. And so what if, in your mind, what is the role of education in your mission?
It's essential, to put it in a word. I mean, one side of it is that adaptogens, they're definitely trending in certain wellness circles, but it's also super early. And you say adaptogens to most people, and they're like, "What?"
Mm-hmm.
I get a lot of people that are like, "I should know what this means," but because they've had enough exposure. But then it's just it's a term that's thrown around, and there's not that much education behind it. And so I think people do often receive the marketing, but not the education to sort of back it up and help them understand. And it's one of those things. I'm really into tea and tea ceremonies, I mentioned in my bio, and my tea teacher says, I'm that into tea that I have a tea teacher. He says that plant medicine requires participation. It's not like a pharmaceutical where you just take the pill and then you feel the thing, whatever it is, whatever you're supposed to feel, it just works. And plants have that to a certain extent, but I know so much that the more consciously I engage with them, the more I feel and experience and appreciate them. And education really supports that. If you understand what it's doing in your body, you're going to be noticing a little bit more, and you're going to be, supporting that. And then one of the things that we really work to educate around is adaptogens should be taken regularly, daily. And some of these are herbs that in Chinese medicine, they recommend you take for decades, literally. Codenopsis is an herb we have in our formula, and they just throw it in their food all the time. It's like, it's just cut up in their soups and everything. And so we really just try and nurture people and encourage them to be taking it regularly, so they can really feel what these herbs can do for them. I think a lot of people, again, in a little bit more of the sort of trendy adaptogen world, they're like, oh, today I'll take a little bit of this, and today I'll take a little bit of this. And and the other thing that they might be missing out on is a balanced formula. Looking at sort of more the Ayurvedic perspective or the Chinese medicine perspective, that elemental side, certain herbs have different properties, and there's a number of the herbs in our formula that are very, very drying. And so we had to really increase the amount of moistening herbs in there to really have it nice and balanced. And so we're not drying people out and, creating these long-term impacts. And so, educating people on all of these different fronts, and then trying to support and nourish like a little bit of a healthier lifestyle. It's interesting. So we're considering a new tagline. And one of the ones that we were considering was sustain your superpowers. And as we looked into it more and just really felt like I had some hiccup around that, it was so nice and overwhelmingly positive. And I was like, something's not ringing. And when I got to it, I was like, that's sort of making the statement that the way that the world is right now is okay, and just keep going, go do more, everything more. And that's not actually sustainable or healthy. And so we switched it up a little bit. I think I'm going to hold it off for now until we launch it next month. But we not ended up not going with Sustain Your Superpowers because we wanted to send more of a lifestyle message that, like, hey, you actually need a little rest. You need a little calm. You need a little nourishment. You can't just keep going and push harder and use adaptogens as a way to extract more resources from your body than it wants to give. I mean, that's the whole problem, with the environmental problem as well.
Yes.
We're asking for more resources than is sustainable. So we have to do the same thing with our bodies. So all that's sort of a long-winded way to point to. There's also this lifestyle consideration, and you saw that in the Equinox blog. And as I get more marketing help, because right now I'm the CEO and the marketing person, then we'll start churning out quite a bit more in terms of that stuff, because it's, we want to invite people into a healthy, nourished, energized, balanced lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. That was how I felt it, when I looked at the website, and I encourage everyone to just look at the website, for fun. It's rasacoffee.com, and we'll say that again, but
Coffee with a K.
With coffee with a K. Thank
Yes.
you. Rasa K. So RASAKOFFEE. And I can't wait to hear the new tagline when that comes out.
Me too.
Okay. Okay. So I think, we covered this a little bit. Is there anything more to say about how do you feel our energy levels tie into the big picture of self-care, including our relationship to food? So we're starting to get into the food piece. Yeah.
It's a great question. The two pieces that come up that are sort of additional to what I spoke of earlier is one, rest. Rest is just critical, and I think we forget. And as a mom with two littles and a startup, like, rest is pretty minimal in my life, but I'm also just really trying to make the most of it when I can get it. And I just think that we all need to remember that there's a pulsing. There's an inhale and an exhale in our lives. And so much, if you're not inhaling also through rest, through nourishment, you're going to run out of breath in one way or another, whether that's through your adrenals, whether that's through getting sick, whether that's through something bigger, whether that's through something small, just freaking out and being a stress case. And nobody likes that.
Mm-hmm.
And then for me, another piece is just an orientation towards nourishment, and being, as my life gets more full and as Rasa has been growing, which is super exciting, but I need to really be oriented around what is nourishing to my energy, what is a net positive to my energy, and what is a drain, and really be a bit ruthless about not accepting the things that are a drain. And that's both in terms of people in my lives and also in terms of habits and the things that I say yes to, and that sort of thing. So sometimes I do find that scrolling Facebook can be nourishing for me, and that's just like, I don't really have that much bandwidth to do things, and catching up a little bit on other people's lives is actually wonderful. And sometimes that goes into way not a nourishing place. And so having this internal orientation and a willingness to really look at, like, am I nourishing myself right now, or am I just pissing my energy away? And just having that constantly on, having that assessment constantly on. It doesn't mean that your life always looks perfect and you're like, giving yourself a massage and taking baths, like whatever. No, it doesn't have to be that way. I mean, you can find nourishment through so many things, and drinking too much sometimes is nourishing for like whatever. In certain ways. And so I feel like it's about finding a balance and allowing the full spectrum of what is nourishing to you, and also being honest and ruthless about when it's not.
Yeah. I love that. So that takes a lot of presence, right? We can't just have a yes or no answer for everything. We have to be present in every moment. And that's the gig with life, right? So that's
always case by case.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. Okay. So now I'm gonna get, we're gonna get a little more into the, a little more personal with the food. So, this podcast really started as a podcast for folks who were struggling with binge eating disorder and with food addiction, and it's continued that way, and yet we've really found ways to link um, that constellation of symptoms, that constellation of things that might be going on in someone's life with every area of life. So we talk about everything here on
Mm-hmm.
Curb the Binge, and really tie it in. So when you and I talked and had our communication back and forth, you shared with me, generously and candidly, that you have also had your own history with
Mm-hmm.
eating disorders and struggles around food. And
Mm-hmm.
so I wanted to just, give you a space and, see if you're willing to share with us your own history and your own healing journey around that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to. One of the things that first came up was gratitude to be able to talk about it. And then I also noticed that it's easy for me to talk about now because it feels completely 100% behind me. And I noticed that's true for so many things that we struggle with. And just wanted to make a space for an allowance for, people who are struggling in whatever way. Maybe you don't want to talk about it. Maybe you're not ready to talk about it. And just that's okay and completely understandable. And also the times that I was able to open up to someone when I was in it, because I really struggled mostly alone with it. But the few times that I did, even if I didn't maintain that opening, it really, I look back on those times and I see the incredible amount of nourishment I got just from having one person connect with me and support me in that way. So it's so hard to talk about it when you're in it. But if you can, even in some tiny way, or even just talking with yourself about it and just really as if you were another person, like let yourself be another person, being like, okay, and talk to the eating disorder, talk to that part of you that's in that place. I think it can be really, really healing. So I started out with an eating disorder when I was 16. It started off anorexic and very quickly went to bulimic, as it often does. And I realize it's only been in the last couple of years that I've and with a lot of therapy that I was like, oh, this is why it happened. I consider myself really fully healed for maybe 8 years, 9 years, and like pretty doing pretty well, like for maybe 10. But so, it was like 16 to 24 when I feel like I was really kind of in it. And then like some lagering symptoms that went on until maybe 28. And yeah, anorexia, bulimia, binge eating, it all was mixed in there. And I could not have imagined not having a very fraught relationship with food during that time. I could not have imagined just being like, you just eat like what you want and then you stop. Like that was, just, it didn't even seem possible in my physiology. And I remember very clearly the first time I texted my boyfriend. I think I was 29, maybe 30, and I'm 35 right now. Almost 36. Wow, next month. And I let him know that I had some ice cream, and I just had a bowl of ice cream. And then I stopped. And it was this huge, because often a bowl of ice cream could turn into the whole thing, could turn into me walking to the convenience store and eating all of the things and just being like, I'm never going to do this again. So I might as well get it all out of my system right now. And, and then it happening again a week later and, or days later or the next day, whatever, or even that night sometimes. And so there was that first moment of like, I ate ice cream and then I stopped. And it was okay. I didn't have all those feelings of guilt, and I didn't have all those feelings of shame. And the way I pulled myself out of eating disorder in general was really in this kind of one day at a time kind of perspective. And I remember when I was really deep into bulimia, I was binging and purging sometimes 5 times a day. I mean, it was a lifestyle. Like it took a ton of time. I look back and I'm like, wow, I just can't even imagine how I did that. And, you know, I quote unquote knew I shouldn't. I knew I wanted to take better care of my health, all of those things. And yet it kept happening. And so I really started one step at a time, and being like, okay, I'm not going to do this again for 30 days. And lo and behold, that didn't work. And then I'd be like, okay, 1 week. And then it would be one day, and that didn't work either. And I'd be like, okay, let's get through breakfast. You know, like, let's have a breakfast and do that. And I managed to pull myself out of the what is it, like the gross externalized habits of binging, of starving, of purging, by doing that. And just really, I got myself out of the binge and purge and starve cycle, at least, by just going, okay, I did breakfast, oh, failed at lunch. Okay, I did breakfast, oh, I did lunch, oh, failed at dinner, you know, and just building that up slowly over time. And then there came that point where I was like, oh, it's been a week. Like, wow, it's been a week. And then there came that point where it was a month. And that did, because I hadn't worked out the internal stuff, I was really working with the external stuff. And because I wasn't going into therapy, which I think would have been smart, but I just didn't have a relationship to therapy at that point. You know, I hadn't worked out the mental stuff. And so there was still so much of the patterns that caused that cycle, were still there and hadn't been addressed. So then I got into just like a binge eating cycle, and just eating, but not purging. I told you know, I fixed the purging thing. I don't purge anymore, but then I binged and binged. And there was a bit of a cycle with that for several years. And I got relatively overweight. That was also when my thyroid condition really, expressed itself and became very obvious. And that also contributed to weight gain as well. And, you know, I'd have months where it's good, quote unquote good, months where it's not good, et cetera, et cetera. And throughout that process, I'd been developing as well. You know, I had been doing meditations. I had been, you know, like really cultivating energy in that way. And then there was also like this judgment in my mind, like, how can I be this person who's like trying to get enlightened and then I can't stop eating? And, you know, and then the shame just helped with that whole cycle again. Better eat some food to calm those feelings. But I was also really getting into food from a healthy perspective. I was like, if I'm going to be obsessed with food, let's channel this into a good way. And so I really got into cooking. I got into Ayurveda. I trended towards orthorexic for a period as well. And just being like, well, now I'm really obsessed with being healthy. And, you know, that also doesn't work, guys, just FYI. It all started to kind of come out in the wash. I think I still haven't quite figured out what it was. It was like a slow, gradual process. There wasn't like a big aha kind of moment where it just like fixed itself. I mean, I don't think it goes that way with food stuff. You can't get away from that as an addiction. Like, you can't not eat. It's not like drugs where you can just be like, I am never going to be in a drug situation ever again in my life, and that's going to really help. No, you have to eat all the time, every day. And so I think it's one of the toughest addictions to deal with. But I started to really dive into my career. And at that time I was working on promising climate change technology. And I was really just focused on that. And I noticed that I would have less and less time to think about it. And it was more and more that I was pouring myself into something else. And so I didn't have that much time to just be engaged with, you know, a pretty like for me, and I'm saying this not with judgment for others, but like the truth is, and when you come away from it, you can start to see like, wow, that was a lot of time in conversation with me, myself, and I, and really, really concerned about what's going on in here. And I think that everybody needs to go through phases of that in their lives. And we have, again, inhales and exhales of times where we are more me focused versus more other focused. But for me, I think it was actually really healing to have this time of being much more other focused. And to just not have as much time to focus on it. And yet there was still this flavor of sometimes I'm good and sometimes I'm bad. And sometimes I would still go into calorie counting to, because I was feeling a little bit chubby or whatever. And it still wasn't like kind of fixed. And then I don't remember if there was a particular moment where this started or if there was an inspiration for it to start, but gradually what started happening was I started intuitive eating on my own. And I know that that's a whole perspective, but and I don't know exactly if there's a theory on that in general, but what ended up happening was I noticed that if I really just trust my body, and you know what, actually, I think this is what really helped. Sorry, it's been skipping around a bit here, but it just came to me. I'm like, wait a second. I did a panchakarma, which is an Ayurvedic parlance. It's like a very slow, very gentle, but very deep detoxification retreat. And the whole time is really focused on your health 100%. And when I came out of that, I felt so incredibly balanced. And it was almost like those cells in my body had, like, the ones that were patterned around this is how I relate to food just really shifted. And I believe it coincided with that, where I noticed that, if I eat a lot one day, I'm actually not as hungry the next day if I really listen to my body. So I had a few weeks of just really focusing on my body during that time in panchakarma. And I think that was, being religious about that, taking that time and investing in my health. We invest in so many other things in our lives, and it feels indulgent to be like, I'm going to take a few weeks just for my health, but like, oh my God, why shouldn't we? And so spending all that time really listening to my body and listening to my hunger cues and realizing how I had overridden them so many different times and how it was a very mental experience, this idea of hunger. And actually, it's very physical. And I had to like drop it down into my gut and really be like, okay. And I failed a bunch. Like, all right, am I hungry? No, I'm not hungry. Wait, yes, I am. Or am I full? No, keep eating. Oh, no, you were full. You were full right then. So, there's a lot of that, and finally getting in touch with this muscle of my hunger, and this, dialogue that I can have with my body around it. And then realizing that, I can eat quote unquote unhealthy things for, a couple of days. And then lo and behold, my body just craves being more healthy and craves greens and just like, and I'll just, and it became this experience of, just being able to really trust my body and trust its signals, and allowing anything. I mean, I think that was another big thing, was just like, I had to let there be no rules about what I ate. And that was, I think, a really big piece for me. Cause like, I would say I could never have cake, or I could never have sweets, or I could never have anything, whatever. And then as soon as I would, because inevitably it would happen, and then it would be like, I broke all the rules and I'd have to, do it all right now because I'm never going to do it again. And once I took that off limit and I had cake and was like, cool, you can have cake again tomorrow if you want, you're full right now. And if, there were some days I had a piece of cake for breakfast, and it was like, and then I noticed that wasn't necessarily the most sustaining way to take care of my body and that sort of thing. So it, isn't necessarily something that happens often. But just that experience of anything is allowed, and I take care of this body that takes care of me. And I think those two ideas and philosophies together just kind of emerged out of themselves, out of this long process. It was a long, slow process. And now, and for several years now, I mean, it's just like, when I was pregnant, I gained 50 pounds, and it was like fine. Like this is what I do. And I just eat whatever. I just have the experience. I eat whatever I want, whenever I want. I trust the balance of things. And it is so liberating, and it's so amazing. And I mean, I can't say enough of it. When I think about it in context of where I was, it's like, whew, wow, I gave myself a lot of energy in that. That was probably my biggest energy leak, talking back to the energy conversation. Yeah, a slow burn that I think I probably could have done a lot faster if I had been in therapy. Or just worked with someone, whether it's therapy, whether it's a nutritionist or a Ayurvedic practitioner or something like that. But I do think the therapy piece is really valuable to get at some of that core wounding that causes us to feel out of control and seek food as a healing mechanism, when it's really meant as like deep nourishment and togetherness and community and culture. There's so many things that lie into food, and that hidden, I'm eating whatever I can, trying to hide from my roommates or whatever, is a symptom of a much deeper issue.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's so much, in what you just shared, and I'm thankful that I'm so thankful that you just, shared with us that entire story, and, in such a generous and complete way. And so let's just maybe take a breath after that for everyone.
Yeah. Thanks for giving me the space. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see. So much in there, so much kindness and self-trust and slowing down with the panchakarma and presence, awareness, so much in there. And I think that's a real message of hope for everyone listening. Your story is quite remarkable. So I think you really, we had the question about you having such a, full life, being an entrepreneur and a mother of two littles. And, it sounds like you really, my question was around, other than Rasa, I mean, in addition to Rasa, how do you take care of yourself? And, it sounds like, I mean, I'll be totally transparent. Like when I came into the interview, because I have so many themes of this myself, I have two kids that are not that small. They're 9 and 10, but they're still, definitely, they're a lot. They're a centerpiece of my life. And, being in a relationship and being an entrepreneur myself and having many clients that I take care of. I mean, I often kind of relapse into this place of pushing myself, and asking my body for more resources than it's willing to give. So I just want to highlight that you said that. And is there anything else that you want to add about how you take care of yourself to make it all work?
Yeah. I mean, one of my biggest modes of self-care is tea ceremony. And that is, it's just become so much of, I'll probably never make a business out of it, just because it's like that, every once in a while somebody's like, well, you're really into tea ceremony. Why isn't that your business? And I'm like, tea ceremony is about being. Adaptogens support me in doing. I experience it, that tea drank ceremonially puts me into a meditative space. My body is just already there, and all I have to do is show up. And so I can get great amounts of nourishment out of a few seconds. Because, I might have like, I'm doing tea and then my kid's doing this and I'm like, okay, wait, I have a second. There it is. I can just drink from that wellspring of the self, and then grab the baby from, pulling the plant over on himself or whatever. So yeah, that's my main mode of self-care. And I'm also a big fan of putting oil in my orifices. It's an Ayurvedic thing.
It is totally the
Yeah, oil in
nose,
the
the
nose, oil in
ears.
the ears. Yep,
I
oil on the
love
bottom
it.
of the feet. Yep. Uh,
Yes.
those are, yeah, I have a couple of things that I do every day. Oil pulling, oil in the ears and that sort of thing, oil on my feet at night. And sometimes that's all I get.
Mhm.
And really try and remember to breathe throughout the day. I mean, that's just always there. I always have that choice, and it takes a lot more awareness than I sometimes have to give to it. And yet can always come back. And one of the things my teacher talks about is that so much of the practice is about learning how to fall down and get back up.
Mm.
And because you're going to fall down.
Mhm.
And same if you're pulling yourself out of an eating disorder, you're going to fall down and then you get back up
Mhm.
again and again and again.
Mm. So, Lopa, is that, if you have one message of hope for those listening that are in that place, pulling ourselves out of eating disorders, what would it be?
Yeah. Um, hmm. I would find one person that you can trust. And ideally, that's yourself. But sometimes when you're in the eating disorder place, you don't feel like you can trust yourself. And so you might need to outsource it. And when you're in the place of, I want to get better, ask them earnestly for help and see if they can be the kind of support that you need. And then just take it one meal at a time was how I did it.
Mm. I love it. I love your story so much. And I love that message. Find one person you can trust. Okay. Well, I wanted to just, ask you, you know, and I'm so happy to meet you because you're so authentic. You're so, you've been so transparent with us and so trusting. And it's just amazing to meet you and then to know that you have this love child out there called Rasa Herbal Coffee. And I want to ask you if there are any long-term visions, any long-term goals that you have with Rasa that you would like to share with us. And it's, I want to invite also our listeners, not just to be passive, consumers of this information, like, oh, cool, there's this product, but also to hold that vision with you and for you, because, you're doing good work in the world. And we can all give our energy, a little bit of our energy to hold that and to envision that really, really, having a far reach. So if there's anything you'd like to share.
Thank you. And thank you, listeners. That's just amazing to think of you having a moment of your mind and heart to supporting this vision. My goal, mission, vision is to make to trying to find the right verb. To make adaptogens really an ally in people's lives, and to make that as easy and accessible and affordable as possible. And to be in the homes of millions of people's lives. That would be, and in that, I mean, so that's like sort of a, what do I want? But then there's like, what does that get us? And I'm really curious about a world where people are not just fueling themselves off of coffee, which is often used to go beyond your body's natural signals, to go beyond your hunger cues in a way. There's an analog with energy and hunger for sure. people get out of touch with their hunger cues, they get out of touch
Mm-hmm.
with their energy cues.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love for people to feel really in touch with that, and to be, you know, more connected with themselves and more trusting of their own internal energy state, because they are sourcing their energy from within,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to without, the way coffee does.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
lots and lots of people. And then what does the world do? What does everybody do?
Yeah, that's right. That would be beautiful. That will be beautiful
Yeah.
to watch. Okay. Well, we'll hold that. I'm holding that with you.
Thank you.
Okay, Lopa. So in this last little bit here, let us know where we can find the Rasa.
Awesome. We are at rasacoffee.com, RASA, coffee with a K. And we are on the Instagram, and there's lots happening over there. That's probably that's where we live most on social. So we're Rasa Coffee on Insta, and also on Facebook, Rasa Coffee. And we are, if you are in a relationship with coffee that doesn't feel like it's the healthiest for you, we're actually launching a coffee detox program this week. And we've partnered with a behavioral behavior science expert to help you learn how to shift behavior. So what he teaches you there can also be applied to any behavior as well. So if you're struggling with food issues, it might be named coffee detox, but you could actually apply the whole thing and sub in your food relationship with the coffee, and it would still provide a lot of really useful resources on that.
Fascinating. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so, so much. This has been an honor and delightful. And I just look forward to seeing what you do
Thank you.
and how Rasa grows.
Thank you, Katya. So appreciate the opportunity to be here. This has been a really wonderful time together.
Absolutely, it has. Okay, Lopa. See you next time.
Yeah.